Vice President Kashim Shettima reads the National Statement of Nigeria on behalf of President Bola Tinubu. He echoed Nigeria's position on the global action against existential challenges faced by the international community. Nigeria has called on world leaders to recommit themselves to multilateralism by deepening relations among member states of the United Nations, in line with the principles of inclusivity, equality, and cooperation.
We are particularly mindful of the imperatives of achieving the advancement of youth and women as a factor in national development, peace, and security. Nigeria has developed its own national action plan on women and security, as well as a national action plan on youth, peace, and security to ensure the participation of both women and youth in the peace and security sector.
As the chairman of ECOWAS, President Tinubu's statement, read by the VP, called global attention to the gale of unconstitutional takeover of government in Africa, which highlights the need to support poor countries economically to ensure peace and stability. Nigeria also made a case for poor and developing countries by calling for reforms in the global financial architecture that most often favors the wealthy and powerful countries by strangulating poor and disadvantaged countries with stringent debt repayment conditions.
We must ensure that any reform of the international financial system includes comprehensive debt relief measures to enable sustainable financing for development. Countries of the global south cannot make meaningful economic progress without special concessions and a review of their current debt burden.
This time around, Nigeria is leading the charge with a bold statement for a reform of the UN Security Council to grant permanent seats to Nigeria and other African countries. Nigeria is urging the United Nations to galvanize global support in tackling the root cause of conflict, which includes poverty, hunger, inequality, and exclusion, as well as other forms of injustice. Nigeria insists the buck stops on the table of the United Nations if indeed there is a determination and shared responsibility to make the world a better place. Femi Akonde, TVC News, New York.
Now joining us for more on this is public affairs analyst Chukwuma Kenwa. Good to have you join us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So one of the biggest challenges we've seen in recent times, especially in Africa, and it has led to a lot of protest, is where international financial organizations try to help these countries restructuring their countries so they can pay their debts. And then that leads to more hardship in this country. So how important is this call by the vice president for debt forgiveness and a new financial pact?
Very, very important and timely, considering the untold impact and hardship it has on developing nations. Because I believe that by so doing, the international community will indeed leave no one behind. Because if we have the global goals that seek to ensure shared prosperity for everyone on planet Earth, then this would be the way to go. Because by the time you're able to relieve them of debt burdens that cripple the economy, insist on policies that are somehow like anti-economic for the survival of the people, that at the end of the day help to make things more difficult for people, then you could even have incidences where people can thrive in their own country. That's going to help to like control issues of migration, rather than a situation where you have like people trying to move from droves from the global south to the global north. So I think that is the smart way to go, and we not only ensure for prosperity and thriving by global south, but also ensure that the systems in the north are not overburdened.
And for those who are saying that this should be done, if at all it is considered, it should be done on a country-by-country basis. That one of the criteria for that debt forgiveness is whether these countries have actually used this loans for development in their countries.
Well, the truth of the matter is that as it is at the moment, the international community should be able to look at the big picture. If the essence of like multilateral cooperation is first and foremost peace, shared development, and shared prosperity, then the smartest way to all of this would be to go beyond like some of the gaps which obviously exist in some African countries, where some of those loans, the official development assistances, from the OECD nations were not properly utilized for the purpose it was earmarked for. But they should be able to go beyond to look at the security risk it poses to the planet, the security risk it poses to other nations that are relatively more stable. Because one integral aspect of security that we must always discuss is the human security. The fact that people are able to find job, able to find food, able to find shelter, able to thrive and live and afford a basic standard of living that will help them to think well and feel like, that basic thing that makes them human. And with that, they can begin to think to become a nuisance to others.
And the last point, I want us to touch on is also the part where the vice president, that's the president through the vice president, is seeking a permanent status to UNSC for Nigeria and some other countries. This is even as the United Nations, has come under the spotlight for restructuring and reforms.
I mean, this time, it's good it's coming from Nigeria, and I think it's a giant stride. The UN Security Council is long overdue to be restructured. A situation where only 5 permanent members has veto powers. Even if you have 192 members of the United Nations take a stand on one issue, one of those countries could actually overturn those decisions. We've seen like the positions of the world when it comes to like issues of Israel and Gaza, and just only US is enough. And also like in the case of Ukraine and Russia, because Russia is also, part of the countries that have a permanent stake in the UN Security Council. So if fundamentally in the Charter of the UN, every nation is sovereign and equal, then I think it's due to be restructured. Not a situation where you have all is equal, but some are more equal than others. I think 21st century deserves something better.
Thank you so much for your time. Always a pleasure to have you on Public Affairs Analyst Chukwuma Kewa.
Welcome.
Well, back here in Nigeria, the Academic Staff Union of Universities has issued a 14-day strike warning ultimatum to the federal government, asking it to resolve all outstanding issues. ASUU, in a statement by its president, Emmanuel Osodeke, said the body is seeking the conclusion of the renegotiation of the 2009 federal government ASUU agreement based on the NIMI BRICS Committee's draft agreement of 2021. It also demanded the release of withheld salaries due to the 2022 strike action, while expressing concern with the government's lack of commitment and delay tactics. ASUU is also demanding the release of unpaid salaries for staff on sabbatical, part-time and adjunct appointments affected by the integrated payroll and personnel information system, and the payment of outstanding third-party deductions such as check-off dues and cooperative contributions. In other news, Governor of Akwa Ibom State, Umar Eno, has approved the payment of 180 million naira for the initial enrollment of 9,150 junior civil servants of grade level 1 to 6 in the state health insurance scheme. The governor announced the payment at the official launch of the scheme, codenamed Arise Care in Uyo, the state capital. TVC News' Miriam Daniels reports.
Governor Eno says he is happy to launch the health initiative. He reaffirms that under his Arise agenda, Akwa Ibom people will enjoy access to quality health care, especially for the vulnerable and people in the rural areas. An individual can enroll with 18,000 naira, 96,000 naira for a family of 6, while group registration of more than 10 people will be 17,000 naira to access basic medical services at the primary healthcare centers. Governor Eno also compliments the health insurance scheme with an ambulance service. He adds that there will be at least 1 ambulance for each of the 10 federal constituencies, 6 of which he said has already been delivered.
We want to see a robust pharmaceutical services, that when people turn up in these hospitals, we don't hear stories like no drugs, no drugs. I believe that we can electronically work with you and make sure that there are medications in our primary healthcare centers.
He charges the handlers to be up to their task and justify the huge investments in the
Look forward to a day where that hospital will truly be what it was meant to be. My idea is that it must be a standalone hospital, must be separated from government. Government will invest in it, but make it standalone, have the right doctors, be able to partner with doctors across the world, begin to do telemedicine.
The Director and Chief Executive Officer of National Health Insurance Authority, Dr. Kelechi Ohiri, describes the initiative as critical for the universal health coverage of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
Health is critical for poverty eradication, sustainable development, and it is akin to what the government of any country can do to ensure that its citizens have a good life and livelihood. And it is consistent with the Sustainable Development Goals. It was in this regard that when Akwa Ibom State finally set up a rice care, I was quite overjoyed.
While this initiative is expected to reduce the high health expenditure by residents, Governor Eno has a high expectation of its functionality. Miriam Daniels, TVC News, Uyo, Akwa Ibom State.